Hey Skyfarers, and welcome to Aethercast, the Kharadron Overlords channel and podcast, where today we're talking about lists, because we're back, and we've got lists to talk about, because we've not been here for a while, and that's what people want to hear about, is lists. Yeah, it's going to be fun. Joining me for tonight's show, we have our Thunderer from Down Under, Mr. Alexander Cron. Hi, Cron.
Morning, everyone.
Good morning, Cron.
Good
Thank
to
you
be
for
here.
getting up nice and early to join us. And not so early for him, our Endrin Master to the Garden of Nurgle, Mr. Matt Barker. Hi, Matt.
Hi, Lee. How's it going? Thanks for having me. Super excited to be here. Yeah, nice, beautiful sunny afternoon in Southern California. Happy to join you.
Yeah, just to check, you don't live under any flight paths, do you?
I'm pretty close to John Wayne Airport, so but I usually get a 30-second warning because I can hear him coming. I'll have to time my snarky, nonsensical responses in between the in between the
close to the skyport.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's narrative, people. If you hear anything, it's narrative. Cool. So, before we talk about lists, there is news. Because there's always news. There's been an FAQ.
There has.
Yeah,
there has a little bit.
Yes.
And there was one important change for KO.
From your mind. Yes. One important thing. Assault boat got a little bit of a change, and you now can't pick up units that are in combat. So, kind of saw this coming, I think, a little bit. But it is a little bit of a nerf. So, how do you guys feel about it?
Kron, you want to go first?
So the I know assault boat changed. They also changed standard transportation.
No, it's just assault boat.
Oh, okay. Well, it does hurt frigates a little. I know there was some maneuvers people were doing with them. Allowing this was the Thunder the Endron riggers ending 3.1 inch away from the enemy and then piling in.
No, well, basically you could use your Endron riggers as a screen. They'd charge your Endron riggers, and then you'd use assault boat to take them out of combat again, and then charge them in again, so they got 5 further.
Right.
But now you can't take them out of combat. So now you need to have something else as a screen, like Arcanauts.
It's a bit of a nerf, but I think it's the frigate can still mostly do what it's supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
I mean, let's be honest, pulling a unit out of combat to charge another unit and then strike first was probably something that wasn't intended by the assault boat rule. And so it feels like a change that absolutely makes sense and needed to happen. But at the same time, was one of our last remaining tricks, right? That you could kind of not sort of take advantage of somebody's lack of the rules, but just something that's a little out of the ordinary that you could use as a KO player to pull out of your tool bag when you needed it. So while it was probably a change that was worth the change, it just feels like it's like, oh, another just another thing stacked against us in 4th edition at the moment. But I can't disagree with the change. It was a little crazy to be able to do that,
especially if you could then charge into the unit that they were already in combat with, and then just fight before them.
Yeah, exactly. So reposition and get strike first just for doing nothing. Just like, oh, I'm going to strike first, I guess.
Yeah.
I feel like we still have a few tricks, though.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
KO still have a few things that people can definitely take people off guard.
I think if people were saying should KO get a ruling in their favor or against them, most people would say, yeah, just let them have it. It's totally fine at this point. But it was a change that I think was not intended. It was a clearing up something that wasn't intended.
Yes, I wouldn't be surprised if it ends up happening to the normal transport as well at some point. It does seem a bit strange that they only did assault boat when they did it, but I don't know. If it happens to the normal transport, that's when I'll be a little bit
That
annoyed
would be a problem.
because
That would be a
will
problem.
be,
If you can't take people out of combat at all with a normal transport in your movement phase, then yeah, okay, cool.
Our units are just not durable enough to survive 2 combats in a row.
Mm-hmm.
Whether we chose the combat or not, whether we picked the fight or not, we're probably not durable enough to take two punches in a row.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But otherwise, we do have that still, the maneuverability, and the fact that they looked at KO, changed that small thing in Assault Boat, but didn't change the transportation rule, means that what we've been doing with the transportation rule is probably intended.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
they are designed to redeploy like that and have that micro movement, that mastery of micro movement thing.
Yeah, cool.
Which is good.
So, we're going to talk about lists, and
hell yeah.
Before we do, a little bit of an explanation of why this show has taken so long. There's numerous excuses, but the main thing is it took me a little while to get my head around some lists that I liked with the models I had, and it felt kind of weird to come and do a list show and actually be like, I don't have a list that I like, so I have one now. Well, I'm probably going to tweak, but we'll talk about it in a minute. But that's the problem. There were some fairly obvious lists, which we'll start with one of them. But I couldn't have the models for that, so that was a problem for me.
We've also no one's really been playing KO if you look at the stats.
Yeah, a couple of people, but not many.
we haven't had 100 competitive games yet. We haven't. We're in the same boat as Beats of Chaos and Bone Splitters in that we don't have enough games to have accurate stats, like accurate data. Really,
there are some factions that had 100 competitive games in one weekend.
Yeah.
And you know, the low numbers of games are bound to happen when you have a whole new edition and everybody's got a new rule set and everybody's like, oh, I want to try this, or next weekend, oh, I'm going to try this army that's been on the shelf because they're suddenly awesome. And I think a lot of people who had a KO army were probably playing it in 3rd edition, and so they're just trying out some other stuff. I can't say that I haven't pulled the Maggotkin off the shelf for a tournament or two lately, so I'm guilty of that as well.
Yeah. I do know some people are just like new edition, new army, and that's just the way they play. So, you know, some people will have dropped off just because of that. And I could see really why people aren't picking KO if they're picking up a new army. You know, when there's others that are, you know, performing very well at the moment and sort of clear winners in the meta. Looking at you, Nighthorn. So yeah, I can see why.
No,
but there's also
hex rates are only one control now. That's it.
Yes, that makes all the difference. That makes all the difference. Yes, hex rate. Nighthorn are fine now.
Of course. Yeah. Okay, so let's look at some ways that you can still win with KO. Let's look at some of these lists that are working out.
Okay. So let's look at our first list, which we call the Thunderclad. So this list is
trademarked by Alexander Kron.
He has to fight someone for it, but they live in different hemispheres, even. So it should be fun. So this list is Engineers Expeditionary Force. It doesn't necessarily have to be, but I think it is a fairly good choice at the moment. Getting an extra artifact, 2,000 points on the nose, 2 drops, because that's what you do these days. It's very. I mean, have you guys played against many lists that aren't 2 drops?
There's a worrying amount of 1 drop Slaves of Darkness lists.
Okay,
popping up.
Yeah.
My Maggotkin list that I'm bringing into the Nova Open is 4 drops.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I played against 1 or 2 3 drops, but mostly it's been 2 drops.
2 drops seems the standard.
Yeah, 2 drops, and I've been winning roll-offs, luckily. So
yeah, usually you're bringing one hero that can, in the general's regiment, can pack another hero in there, and then another regiment for another hero, and that's about it.
Cool. So this list is essentially an Ironclad and 30 Thunderers. That's this list. We can talk about the rest of it, but that is the crux of the list. And I should begin. What we're talking about with this show is talking about list archetypes. So, yeah, of course, you can go and net list these lists if you want, but there's some scope in these lists to play around with things for your own personal pleasure. If you want to sprinkle a bit of coriander instead of parsley or whatever, go ahead.
The core of this list is really the Ironclad, 30 Thunderers, and the Endrin Master, and then you can use those other points to put in whatever you think will net you battle tactics and distractions and such. I've got my variants on this list, but this is one choice you've got.
Yeah, and kind of what we're talking about with the show is list structures, because there's one or two, or three sort of structures you can build around, I think, and then there are some other structures that just don't work, which we'll talk about the ones that don't work at the end if we have time. But building around a single Ironclad and using that transport capacity for lots of shooting works. And the reason that works is because you can move that ship around and just concentrate a lot of firepower in one place. That's what this is doing.
Now, if I was writing this list, I would make two changes right off the bat, and I think that's kind of why we're doing this show, because I think we're talking about different options within the same umbrella, right? If it was me personally, I would just go all in on the range damage, and then change the expeditionary force to the Grundstok core, and then I would change the Cunning Fleet Master to the probably one of the coolest rule names ever, the Engine Maestro. It's like he's choreographing it, or he's I forget, he's composing a symphony of Aether cannons and deck sweepers. But those are the two I would pick. So one turn, you have a general buff of range, but then one turn you can even extend that even further to reach a key target. It would require a lot of pre-measuring to make sure that you're getting the most use out of the out of that once per game ability. But and so in that case, I would certainly sacrifice the Voidstone Orb probably, because I just want to triple down on the range damage, target a valuable thing and take away its ward. You know what I mean? Like, so long 5-up board on Kragnos, now you're off the table. Or some of the bigger threats out there, Archaeons, Greater Demons, those sort of things. Probably don't need a whole lot of work to take off the Stonehorns these days. They're not that terrifying of a presence, and you won't see too many of them in most ogre lists anyway. But I would double down on the Thunderer range damage and go Engine Maestro, Grundstok core, and keep the burst grenade. That'd be what I would do. Everything else looks good. You got 3 riggers to repair the boat, maybe fly off and do a tactic. You got 20 Arcanauts camping on an objective, kind of providing a little coverage on the side from a counter charge. And then it's just put the boat and blast, move the boat, blast.
The 15 and 23-inch range on the Thunderers can really come in clutch. Instead of denying the endless spells, just shoot the wizard behind the endless spells.
And then it's gone.
Yeah.
Then they all disappear. Easy. I think having all your Thunderers in one redeployable basket makes a lot of sense with the current rules. I feel with 2 boats, if your opponent threatens both of them, you'll redeploy one and the other one will get charged and probably have a bad time. If you have 1,500, this is like 1,500 points around one boat, and that 1,500 points is going to be essentially untouchable unless they have, the 3d6 charge or the moving in the shooting phase or coming around the back. There's ways around, but you can really make that like the majority of your list extremely hard to pin down, and just keep you shooting for longer.
Yeah, what doesn't want to play against KO at the moment is traditional combat lists, because they just can't charge us. Because
People
essentially,
who play a good, honest game of Age of Sigmar is exactly the people we can bully.
Yeah. Anyone that's going to do horrible shenanigans with spells or with their own shooting or walking into combat or something will have a bit more of a chance against KO. But because essentially what this list is doing is using the redeploy in your opponent's turn at the end of their movement phase, and you just move all 30 Thunderers. And
Bye. See ya. Wouldn't want to be
heroes and the 2 heroes. We should unpack a couple of things. Collapsible compartments is very important in this list. Obviously, you technically don't pick it during list building. You pick it after deployment, but you're always going to be using it with this list, because if not, you can only move 20 Thunderers around. You need that to get the movement on the 30. There's some other important things we should mention. We sort of touched on the fact of the range issue. With 30 Thunderers, you've got 60 shots with 10-inch range. Obviously, your Ironclad's only getting 12-inch range on its half its shots for the carbines. The heroes, well, the Endron Master doesn't have any shooting, but the Admiral's only 10-inch range. That is more than enough normally to kill whatever's within 10-inch range. So
the problem is that all-out defense still exists, and if you play against certain armies that are sitting on a base 3-up save, unless you're fighting infantry and you get that the bonus to the shooting, like if you're trying to take down say your target's a big block of Nurgle Varangard, I have a hard time thinking even in 30 Thunderers I think maybe with the Ironclad will certainly help, but trying to shoot off, what is that, 30 3-up saves at that point if they all out defense. It's going to be a tall order. When you play this list, if anybody who's played Thunders in the past, you're going to be dreaming of the days when Ren 2, Damage 3, Aether Cannons were a thing. For me, that's a tough pill to swallow when I'm building and observing Thunderer lists.
Yeah,
it's tough pill to swallow.
The damage output just isn't the same as it used to be. So now instead of, we have to kind of shift the mindset from doing all your damage in one turn, 1 or 2 turns. You need to have that 4 turns of consistent just output, and you'll get the results. It'll just take you a lot longer,
and
which means you need to keep them alive.
And you basically have to consider the fact that you have 3 command points a turn and not 4, because you are using covering fire without fail every single turn.
And you're probably using redeploy. Because
there you go. So you've got 2 command points to spend, and call it 1 command point because something's getting all out attacked, right?
Well, you know what's getting all out attack, and that's something we haven't talked about yet. Is why is the Admiral in this list? And the Admiral can give all out attack to the Ironclad for free. So you do that. You don't, you could make an argument that it's better. You'd be better off having all out attack on a unit of Thunderers. But the reality is, if you can have all out attack somewhere for free, you might as well do it.
Yeah.
And then
one of your Thunderers is getting +1 to hit and wound against the enemies, and Thunderers with +1 to hit and wound. I tell you, that feels tasty.
Yes. Especially when you're shooting in your opponent's turn, because then you're just basically get +1 to wound.
20 deck sweeper shots at 2s and 3s, Ren 2 feels real tasty.
Yeah. When you shoot with just the 4, it's like these are the first 4 guys, and it's 20 shots. 20 shots, and it's 3s and 3s. It's like, it's really good. So some other things we want to call out about this list is the Endron Master. He's in the list for 2 reasons. There's a third bonus thing, but the main reason is he can give run and shoot to the Ironclad.
Yes.
And he can give retreat and shoot to the Ironclad.
That's the big one.
Is very important.
That's the big one. On a 2, don't fail that 2+ roll. I mean, is there ever a time, literally, when a 2+ has ever failed? Literally, like when you really needed it to go off. Have
Anything
you?
but a
I don't,
1.
I don't think. I don't think. I don't think that's ever happened to me. And I play a lot of Blood Bowl, and I've never rolled once.
No. Are you referencing the game I had by any chance, Matt?
No, I was not taking a shot at you, Lee.
Oh, I thought you were, because I did moan about it in a chat.
No, I
But,
just meant in
no.
general. Just in general, you just make that 2-up roll, because otherwise you in trouble.
Yeah, it can be pretty bad if you fail it. But retreat and shoot is kind of obvious why you'd want it, because if they ever do get into your boat, you need to be able to redeploy everything and get out of dodge, and because if not, you don't want to be sitting around fighting people, especially since half the Ironclad's guns don't work in combat and stuff. But run and shoot is also very good, because let's be fair, the Ironclad is not the fastest of units. It's faster than a 4-inch move Thunderer, and then being able to put them 6 inches in front of your Ironclad is very good. But sometimes you need to go a lot further than 10 inches or 16 inches. Sometimes you're playing Star Strike and a comet falls very, very far away, or other things happen. So run and shoot is effectively plus 6-inch range to all your guns, if you think about it.
Well, it'll let you deploy your whole army essentially in their face and just shoot. And that's something you want to do. You want to capture that middle, because it'll give you the space you need to then move back. If they come into your face in your deployment zone, you've got no. It's going to be really hard for you to move around. You want to be in that center and control that center to give you that space.
You've got to be very careful about thinking about where you want to redeploy to in the future and where you position your Ironclad. Terrain can be very annoying if you're too close to it and then you want to redeploy in a certain direction and it stops the movement of your oval base or whatever. Making sure that you don't get boxed in, that sort of thing.
Always thinking 2 steps ahead, unfortunately.
Cool.
Another thing I've noticed with this list is you can take objectives very well, but you aren't going to be holding objectives, because when they come towards you, you're going to be redeploying back, which means you're going to be coming off those objectives. You can take them back in your turn, but your opponent is going to be scoring pretty high on their turns as well. Makes the take to the, I think, attack on 2 fronts, the take 2 objectives back battle tactic a pretty easy one for you. But just remember that they'll be scoring too.
Yeah, I mean, there's one thing we haven't talked about this list so far, which is the 20 Arcanauts, and they are something that if you move them forward early, you can position the Ironclad so that one of the unit of Thunderers that you don't move ends up still wholly 6 of it behind it, and then you can just put those Arcanauts on an objective somewhere and they can try and hold it a little bit. I mean, it's 20 wounds. It's something that someone has to fight through, as opposed to just outnumber, or or compared to leaving an objective completely empty. They have some utility there, and they're going to get plus D6 control score from the Admiral as well. So they're pretty cool, and they're actually pretty good these days. They actually do stuff in combat now.
Like 2 attacks.
2 attacks, and not just 2 attacks, but the light skyhooks and the volley guns. They're getting those attacks as well. They're not just clubbing you with gun butts anymore.
Just make sure that if you're using the Arcanauts, they will not be being picked up by this boat. So make sure that they aren't acting as a bridge for your opponent to charge into and then get into the Ironclad and Thunderers in the back.
Yeah. Unless you plan for it, because you could plan and you can only move 3 units is the thing, and you've got 4 units here. Well, if you move the Arcanauts, then you're only moving 1 unit.
So you're only moving 10 Thunderers.
Yeah, 10 Thunderers, not 20. So there's limitations here, but you could plan by moving the Arcanauts early on and then when you redeploy back, don't redeploy, then redeploy other stuff to set yourself up to be able to move Thunderers for your next turn. But there's some cool things. I think you're going to be seeing this list
variations thereof,
or variations of. This is, we should say, this is Richie's list. Richie from Just Play, and he went 4-1 with it at a tournament not too long ago. Cron, you've been doing your own sort of variation.
I've been doing my own variant, and that's been working out pretty well for me.
Cool.
I think this is the Thunderclad is the way to play KO the most efficiently, in my opinion, anyway. Just because it makes maximum use of the transport rules.
Yeah, cool. Cool. So let's assuming no one's got anything else they want to talk about, let's move on. Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
So
You're the
what
captain.
do you do when you don't have 30 Thunderers?
You buy some more Thunderers?
Well, what if you haven't got time to build and paint them, which is my life? You do this. This is my list for a recent tournament. To be honest, I think it could do some tweaking, which we'll talk about in a minute. So it's a mixed clad. I couldn't think of a better name than that. I'm sorry. We
Combined arms.
We peaked at Thunderclad, and the names are just downhill until the end. And even that's not that great. But so it's 2,000 points, 2 drops. It's got an Admiral in there again, an Ironclad, and this time it's using the transport capacity from the collapsible compartments to move 10 Thunderers and 20 Arcanauts. What am I spending the rest of the points on? 6 Endrinriggers, 6 Sky Wardens, and then another unit of 3 Endrinriggers. And I had a Navigator instead of the Endrin Master on foot. The reason for the Navigator was because I had a very bad experience early on testing KO, the new edition, where I failed that 2+. I was like, well, this guy's rubbish. I don't want rules that go on a 2+. However, I will say I had some experiences in this tournament, where I had to run the Ironclad because the Ironclad, even with +3 move from the Navigator, wasn't fast enough. And therefore, I had to not use the Ironclad shooting. And I also had an experience where I had to retreat the Ironclad. And I kind of wish I had an Endrin Master both those times. How do you guys feel about a Navigator at the moment?
I mean, he's not the negative play experience he used to be, so that's a good thing. But on the other hand, I think maybe they could have just reduced the range on his half move ability a little bit more. 18 inches feels a little harsh of a range reduction on his ability, seeing as how things are just so fast and there's so many ways to buff movement in this game right now that 18 inches kind of feels like a little, I don't know, a little underwhelming. That's just my opinion. I think he's monitoring the winds that blow near my shelf for a time or two.
Yeah, I did find he did not half move things very often because quite often things were not in range. And I was trying to be clever by doing things like when I redeployed in my opponent's turn, I was actually moving him forwards so that in my next turn he would be within 18 inches and stuff. But you could guarantee if you did do that, that's when you wouldn't roll any ones. And then the +3 move was nice, but if you can just run and shoot, it's kind of the same thing. And I actually found I quite often had a CP spare with this list because you're doing all-out attack for free, you're doing redeploy, and you're shooting in your opponent's turn. You're doing covering fire. So you're using 2 guaranteed. Sometimes you're using all-out defense. Occasionally I was using all-out attack for Sky Wardens or Endrinriggers, but not very often. So an auto run 6, there is you can afford it basically, an auto run 6.
I mean, having that dispel no matter where you are on the board seems pretty good. It's instead of having to sit next to a place of power to get it.
Yeah, having an unbind is good. of course, I mean, there are ways of getting it. I mean, if I were to play, I think I would still do Engineers Expeditionary Force because you're getting that +6 move when you need it for the extra range. But you know, that's a personal choice thing, I think. So then I could still take Voidstone Orb. Having an auto unbind, I did find clutch in some games. Like
Stop that purple sun coming in.
Yeah, I stopping a teleport. You know, playing a Zinch, stop a teleport. Also stopped a teleport with a roll of a 10, which was nice. But yeah, stopping an endless spell is good, especially if you want to do Caesar Center, because most people are like, oh, you're doing Caesar Center? Well, we'll put an endless spell there then. You need to go, no, you won't. Because it doesn't work when they've got lots of spellcasters and lots of endless spells, but there you go. Yeah, Voidstone Orb is good. So let's talk about how this list plays. It's very similar. You go forwards, position your Thunderers and your Arcanauts, shoot a bunch of stuff, and then you have your Sky Wardens and your Engine Riggers to kind of come up behind. When they come towards your Ironclad, you redeploy back, then that makes that stuff safe, and then that sets up for the next turn. So when you go and shoot a bunch of other stuff, your Engine Riggers and your Sky Wardens can, in theory, go and charge some stuff. Quite often I end up setting up one of them on the flank for take the flanks. And that's what the unit of 3 is for. Take the flanks is an interesting battle tactic. And I feel like it needs some discussion. Because, well, first of all, let me ask you a question, guys. Do you want to go first with KO?
No.
It depends who. It depends what army is on the other side of the table.
Well, yeah. But most of the time, on average, would you say yes or no?
Probably not.
Yeah. Okay. So taking the flanks is not something that's very easy to do if you make your opponent go first.
No, not at all.
It's very difficult, in fact. So having a unit of 3 Engine Riggers doesn't help with take the flanks if you're not going first. It's fine if you're going first, but if you're not going first, they ain't taking a flank.
The type of unit you're talking about is sometimes called the prospector unit, right? All you're doing is using them to get battle tactics, fell bats, plague drones, 3 engine riggers. What's the one in Furies? Okay, but if you are trying at all costs not to go first, then that unit is probably very low value for you. And then also at the same time, if you're KO and you're super fragile and you need to control the flow of the game, you can't do seize the center because you're just putting your you're putting your delicates in the wind. I don't want to get the channel demonetized on YouTube. A lot of times if you're trying to go, if you're hoping or trying to go second, your opponent is obviously going to do take the flanks, or they're going to do seize the center. And so you're looking to do like a do not waver, which is even tough in this list, or you're looking to do some other battle tactic based on objectives rather than just pure positioning.
Yeah, so I mean, you can do not waver is easier with this list than it is with the traditional Thunderclad list.
Correct.
Because you can charge a unit of Sky Wardens in and just kill something, especially if you already shot them with a bunch of stuff.
Right.
Quite often I was doing take the flanks by shooting the unit. I was going second, shoot the unit a bit that my opponent put on one flank and have the unit of 3 Engine Riggers charge that, which is very dangerous because you have to make sure you kill it.
Yeah.
And it's very hard to get that right, and it doesn't really work very well. Obviously, you can charge with a unit of Sky Wardens on the other flank, and they are pretty good on their own.
They've been working at just six Sky Wardens, but without a boat works out.
They are, because they don't need all that attack, because they just hit on 3s. They get mortal wounds now on crits, which is very good. Even if you come against them with a good save, you still get some damage through. And obviously, normally what someone is putting on a flank is something not necessarily that good, so they will just go and kill it. So they can do some damage, and then they can just they can bug out if they need to as well. And remember, for taking the flank, you don't have to be. You have to be on the flank, but you don't have to be like in a certain part of the flank.
You have to be within 6 inches of the board edge, not wholly within your territory.
Yes. So
Yeah, so
what
you
you
can
can do
have-
is you charge that unit. If you don't kill it, you then use their thing at the end of the turn to go over the top of them and further deeper into their territory, and then you're still out of your territory and on the flank.
Not specific to this list, but take the flanks is going to be a whole hell of a lot easier when gun haulers are not 200 points.
Yes.
Okay. All right. That'll be that when they come down to a nice, reasonable 170, 160, maybe. That's when take the flank. That's when it's our time to take the flanks. But right now, you got to focus on a battle tactic play that focuses on picking off unguarded heroes, play the tyrants, and just other objective based gameplay, because take the flank and then take the flanks is our turn 4, turn 5, right? You're looking to do maybe take their land turn 3. You're going to be doing take the flanks turn 4, turn 5, and then maybe turn 5 is like seize the center when everything's dead and you got 2 units left. You throw them in the center. They're everybody's early game tactics. There are late game tactics, because you can't go first in this list and do a whole lot.
I have been trying to do it early, but you got to set up for it. I've been doing quite often Caesar Center turn 4, and then the order 1 to have the 4 quarters turn 5, because it's easy to just sort of run some stuff off, especially after you get in the center. It's very easy to go get some stuff in each quarter. But yeah, the 3 engine riggers in this I don't think are necessary. They are not helping a great deal, and of course, if you take them out, you could upgrade the Arcanauts to Thunderers. Because I do have 20 Thunderers printed, so it'll work. Engine riggers are an interesting thing, because I don't find I end up healing the boat a great deal. This doesn't seem to happen that much. Either you go very wrong and the boat dies, or things go fine and then you don't end up healing it. Now, of course, that will depend on your matchups a bit, because people will think magic and stuff at it, or longer range shooting, maybe. But no, I find they don't target the Ironclad that much. So
I found healing to be useful, but then just the Endless Master just banging 3 wounds off of it every turn. Because with the End Riggers, I guess they've also got the problem with the End Riggers have to be next to the Ironclad, and in this list they don't have a space in the Ironclad. They're going to have to be, if the Ironclad has to redeploy, they'll be left there and they'll act as that bridge. Well, an Endless Master will fly with the Ironclad and be able to be redeployed wherever he needs to, and still just bang off 3 wounds a turn.
Yeah. So yeah, I've been finding the Sky Wardens much more reliable, because they don't need that all-out attack when they fight.
Although the riggers, if I may stick up for them for a moment, they got an extra base attack, and so if we're going strictly by the numbers here, the math, just my glasses, technically their number of hits have mathematically increased.
Yeah.
With you have 3 base attacks hitting on 4s rather than 2 base attacks hitting on 3s. So, I'm going to stick up for my my capitalist, my chainsaw wielding capitalist dwarfs here for a minute, and say that so mathematically they have more hits, but I think in this edition, the way it's shaking out, the Sky Warden's diversity of damage is probably a lot more valuable, especially now that didn't their pistols get a slight buff? Or
10-inch range.
No. They've gone to 10-inch range and they were 9.
Okay.
At one point, but
for some reason I thought that they always hit on they hit on 4s like the like the rigger pistol, like the nail gun.
No, they were freeze before.
They gave us 10-inch range and everything, but no real reason to
Fine.
teleport 9 inches away now.
I
Yes.
know, like finally the addition they take away our like every game teleport. Remember when that first, not the third edition KO book, but the second KO book that we got, and they reduced the pistols from 12-inch to 9 inches, and then they're like, yeah, that's that now you can just teleport all over the battlefield,
Yeah.
but you're not
9 inches away.
but you're not getting your pistol shots. That was like the ultimate, and now they give it back to us, but we can't do that anymore. It's they're messing with us, man. It's a conspiracy.
They know what we want.
Yeah, exactly. I want to load up a boat with as many arcs as I can fit and just boop, 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 but they just won't do it. It's funny.
Cruel.
So,
if I can say one more thing, I know you guys were talking about the Navigator. I had a puppy situation to attend to really quickly. I think the Navigator is fine at 18-inch range if the result on the 1 for Read the Winds allowed you to do a move of D3 inches or D6 inches, whatever. So if I got to do like last edition, if you could move the boat and then another opportunity to use Transport Skyfarers, now we're talking. Now you're worth the slot. You're worth the points. Even now, your value is not slowing units down that are going to come and counterpunch you, but another reason to do Transport Skyfarers. That would have been some great synergy. I'm a sucker for synergy, even if it's not just pure DPS. So I think that would have been the right call.
Yeah, I mean, he might be kind of OP at that point, but
not really.
Because you could still only transport them once. So there would be, because obviously when you pick a unit for Transport Skyfarers, they can't have been transported before.
Correct.
In the same turn. So yeah, maybe.
So you have I mean, otherwise you're just it's going to save you maybe a redeploy, or maybe there's some reason that you want to get the hell out of Dodge before the end of their movement phase. It's just it's at least it would have been in some at least interesting counterplay or some interesting synergy, some interesting options there. So I still don't think he would be an auto included. I think he'd still maybe sit on the shelf at 18-inch range for a slow unit. But yeah, anyway, that's just some lasting thought I had about this list.
So cool. So this list, how it performed, I went 3-2 with it. So middle of the road.
Decent.
No, that's good.
It's okay. I think a better player could take the same list and maybe do better. You know, I'm the first to admit I'm not necessarily the best player. KO still have the same problem of you score late, so you have to try to play quickly and get to rounds 4 and 5, because if you don't get to play rounds 4 and 5, you're not winning the game unless you talk it out and stuff, obviously. But if I was to, but before I say what if I was to tweak this, I'm going to say this list performs well when you make good use of the Sky Wardens and Engine Riggers. If you play it in a way where you don't make good use of them, it's just a worse version of the Thunderclad. Does that make sense? Does it? Because you just don't have the firepower that the Thunderclad has. So you need to be aggressive with those Sky Wardens and Engine Riggers. That you need to be getting combats out of them. And I think it does work with them. I think I will probably take out the unit of 3 Engine Riggers, maybe swap the Navigator to an Engine Master. I will probably switch the Arcanauts to Thunderers. I think 20 Thunderers is probably enough firepower if you want to play a mixed list and you want some combat. And by doing that, that does give you the option of putting the boat in the sky, which you probably won't do. But having the threat of doing that is enough of a mind game with your opponent to be worthwhile. And then you can put the Unbind on the ship, or if you really need the movement, you can give it the extra +2 move, which will be beneficial in some matchups. So there's some play there by switching the Arcanauts to Thunderers. What did I lose to? I lost to Sylvaneth. Sylvaneth are a very difficult matchup for KO. They've always been a hard matchup, I thought, but now they're worse because now they still move around all over the place.
But the healing is off the charts.
They heal and they bring units back, which is like I want to say a trifecta of annoyingness, but there's only 2 things, so it's not a trifecta. It's whatever the
There's
2.
add in some other annoyance that they do. Yeah.
Well, the moving around in the trees is annoying, isn't it? And not being able to shoot through the trees, and that's annoying. But like, I mean, Alariel charged the unit Sky Wardens and died. That's how good the Sky Wardens are. But then she come back, which is very annoying.
And technically, we've actually found out Alariel can bring herself back.
Yes,
and then
she
because
brought
she's a
herself
new
back.
unit, she can bring back another unit on the same turn.
Yeah,
because it's a different unit doing it.
Yeah, she can. She can bring herself back. It's really annoying, and then she can heal up next turn. And sometimes your opponent gets lucky and rolls a 6 on how much she heals up. Not that I'm bitter, but yeah. One final thing to say about Sky Wardens: there's a lot of Nighthaunt in the meta, and the -2 red on Endrin Riggers doesn't do anything on ethereal stuff.
After the battle scroll, I'm sure there'll be a lot fewer Nighthaunt players around.
Yeah. One quick thing that's not specific about this list, sort of was about this list, is I had the Endrin Riggers in the General's Regiment so that I would have the option of them having the +1 rend on the charge, because having a unit of -3 rend could be very good in certain matchups.
Sure.
I never did it. I always picked the Thunderers, and I always went for a +1 to hit and wound. I think it's just the best
shooting
priority target's just so good.
It's just really good, yeah. So that's that. Cool. Guys, what would you tweak if you were playing this list? Have you got any advice?
Definitely an Endrin Master.
Yeah.
Engine Master.
Cool.
Engineers, again, the Engineers force. I mean, the Voidstone Orb seems nice. A 10-inch move on the Ironclad feels a little light sometimes. It's not enough to go Aether Runners. I guess it's probably the right pick.
If you have the Endrin Master, the Ironclad suddenly has 16-inch move.
And if you're playing Ogres or Gargants, I think it'd be fun to throw a bowler out at them and just watch them not go anywhere.
What I will say about this list is it can kill 192 squigs. 192 or just 92? It was a lot of squigs. What's 8 times 24?
Squigs?
160.
Yeah, 192.
184. Oh.
192. It can kill 192 squigs. I'll tell you that much.
Are squigs class as infantry?
They're class as beasts. So they own 192 squigs, but the most they could ever score on objectives if they got all 3 heroes on and all 8 units was 8, 9, 11.
Yeah.
If
they put all 190 squigs on one objective, they count for like 5.
Yeah.
which is the same amount that a single Blight King with a banner on an objective counts as 5.
Yeah. So yeah. Cool. Let's move on then.
Move on? Yeah, because
we talked about some Ironclad lists.
I unfortunately have to fly high and retreat here in about 15-ish minutes.
Okay, no problem. We will try
we'll get to Matt. Matt, do you have a list in this that you specifically want to talk about?
What's the next one, Lee?
Well, the next one is a mixed arms double frigate list. Then we got all balloons double frigates, and then we got double frigate balloons with Brokk.
With Brokk, yeah. So Brokk was the list that I think I gave you, Lee.
All right, we'll skip to that one for quickly. We'll circle back.
It's not quite exactly the same list because I could love to change it, but it's very similar. You
didn't take the. If you're gonna do Brokk Attakk, you got to do it with just the one K.
Brokk. Oh no, a double K and take out the C. Yes.
Yeah.
Brokk Attakk. Yes. I didn't think of that. But Brokk Attakk, that is the second best name for a list in this show, and the rest are rubbish. So we kind of skipped the order here a bit, but basically,
yeah. Sorry about that. Yeah, for skipping ahead here.
We'll circle back.
I think it's list archetypes. You can take an Ironclad, or you can take double frigates.
Yeah,
I think that's how you play KO now.
Yeah,
I don't think anything else works.
And I think this is the list that I showed when I was the Aethercast delegate, at the coaches roundtable on AOS Coach. This was the DPS list. I gave him 2 lists. One was more of an all-arounder if you're just maybe getting into KO, and you don't have this many this many balloons yet or double frigates. Some people have played KO for a while but don't seem to have 2 frigates. I don't know who among us would possibly have that problem.
Who would
but
not have 2 frigates?
I know.
I have like 4 of the fucking things.
Technically, I have 2 frigates. I just don't have 2 built and painted.
Who would have their own KO centric podcast
Yes.
and YouTube channel, but not have 2 frigates? I don't think such a person exists.
That sounds like a myth. That sounds like a fairy.
Mm-hmm.
So
I will say, last edition, I found a very nice way of playing that I enjoyed with Gotrek, and then I didn't need the second.
I mean, last edition, I didn't even have 1 frigate in the list. I was playing the Rigger Murder Boat. So, no, yeah. So essentially, you have here is instead of 1 Ironclad, like you said, you've got 2 frigates in 2 separate regiments. However, you're just packing as many Sky Wardens and Engine Riggers into each of them as you can. Brokk substituting for almost an entire unit of them, and you're just concentrating the full weight of assault boat in one particular area, and then taking advantage of Brokk being able to just go, you +1 attack, you +1 attack on 6 Sky Wardens is fantastic.
Mm-hmm. So this is actually slightly different to the one you put on AOS Coach.
I was just noticing that because what I had done, it was just pretty similar probably, but it's 2 frigates with 12 balloons, and I think it's all riggers just simply for the points. And Brokk having a 3+ save and a 12-inch move who flies can very easily keep up. And the Engine Master and Engine Harness he finds a nice spot to hide in terrain, and then he'll get picked up. We'll come back around and swing around and pick him up.
The main difference is you didn't have a unit of Archnaut Company.
No.
Which I think at the time you did that show was fine. Post FAQ, I think you want a unit of Archnauts. So you can push them forward as a screen somewhere and then go kill a bunch of other stuff. And I think it's very helpful then, because then you've got something that can absorb the charge and then you can counter charge into. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely.
Whereas before you could just do it, they could just charge your riggers and then you could counter charge. So yeah, and to make that work, you had basically this unit become riggers, and then you had a unit of 3 Sky Wardens as well. That's what you spend the points on. Correct.
And Brokk is able to keep up and fly around, no problem. And Brokk is amazing because he brings like more than a frigate, but less than an Ironclad's worth of shooting damage himself. Still with the D3+3, still with the 6 shots at Ren 1, 2 damage. Like, he is a beast. He doesn't need a CP to make them all +1 attack, and I don't think he needs a CP to be able to make you to do his other ability either. So it's just super great. Brokk is awesome. 290 feels feels like a lot, but everything, and I think, in my opinion, that people like to bag on KO right now. The rules, fantastic. The War Scrolls, great. Maybe some of them, I think, looking at you Thunderers, if you're going to make me get an extra Ren from the Chemist on a 3-up, then you got to give me base 2 on one of their weapons. I'm looking at you, GW. If you're going to make me roll the 3-up for the extra Ren on the Chemist, you got to give me Ren 2 base on one of the profiles. And Kron said it's the cannon. But it's the points. The points for me right now need some tweaking, which is always a great position to be in. I don't want to be in a position where I'm like begging for big War Scroll changes, or I'm begging for, like our battle traits suck. But just having a little bit high points, that's so easy to fix. That'll be fixed in the next battle scroll if they really wanted to. So I get your games in with KO, get good with them now in a self-imposed points nerf, and then everything will be fine. Everything will be fine.
Yeah.
We'll gun haulers down from 200.
I don't know why.
Some of the characters in particular, I think, are a bit egregious. We don't need a 140-point chemist. Come on.
There's no reason for a chemist to cost more than an Engine Master or a Navigator.
Or
This doesn't.
and then take into account the fact that we just don't participate in the hero phase.
Yeah.
And manifestations right now, every faction in the entire game has summoning, essentially. And we don't.
Everyone does, except for KO.
Even Fire Slayers, even the damn Fire Cousins have their incantations. So it feels a little brutal. But
if only there was some artifact maybe that previously existed that filled that slot that they could maybe introduce in the book.
Maybe we could send a message in a bottle to Games Workshop and they could give us something. No, but seriously though, this list, if you're not playing the Thunderclad list, for me, you're playing double frigate, and then whether you take Brokk or you don't, which you'll see some variations here in a couple minutes, you're packing them with engine riggers or sky wardens to whatever your favorite flavor of ice cream is. You pack them with double scoops, one scoop into the frigates, and you are concentrating an enormous weight of power in a concentrated place, and then Zoidberging out of there next turn. And then this army is like, try to charge this army. Try to charge something in this army. I dare you. And then if you don't, it's like I liken it to like sort of a game of pinball. You boom, hit here, damage it, weaken it, maybe kill it. Then you're boom over here. Then you're over on this objective. Then boom, across over there. So it's just this game where you're either critically wounding or taking out pieces and never being able to get hit back. That's the name of the game with a double frigate list like this. All the while, by the way, let's just say for the sake of you've got 8 Rend 1 2 damage shots, 14 with Brokk, and then you've got a couple of D3+3 Rend 2 shots there, and then all the pistols that are all shooting combat. Like, you're doing some work. It's just about picking the right fights at the right time. And not sticking around. You get out, you get the hell out of there. If you're in somebody's combat range, there's got to be a way that you're getting out, because otherwise you're in trouble. So that's my comments on this list archetype.
I mean, the main thing we want to do with a double frigate list, especially if it's a balloon one, not a mixed arms one, is you either want to fight in 2 locations in your turn, because you can't do that normally, because if you do normally, you fight with 1 unit and that's great, and then your other unit gets killed because they don't get to fight before your opponent does. Whereas if you've got frigates, that's fine. Or just having at least 1 frigate means that you can fight in 2 locations, potentially 3 locations if you've got 2 frigates.
To look out again, the fight in 2 locations, like you can't redeploy 2 boats.
Yeah,
one of those is going to get stuck.
Yeah. When I say 2 locations, they might be on the same flank, or you might have one going very, very, very much down the edge of the table and one more to the center. And that's
what's really nice about having the assault boat is people underestimate the value of power through with the assault boat. And then using that to transport Skyfarers. If you've set up for it previously by not using transport Skyfarers to get to your position, you hit them with Sky Wardens can time charges out of there, but being able to power through with the frigate and then move the Sky Wardens off, and then being able to use their fly keyword. A lot of people I think I've ran into a couple people who tried to use power through and they just move through models. And I'm like, no, you don't get to fly when you use power through, only if you have the fly keyword. And so being able to power through with fly and get out of a combat, and then either next turn charge just right in and get strike first, or then use your redeploy trick to get even further away from them. Power through is very powerful with frigates and transport Skyfarers.
Yeah. The other thing this list wants to do is charge on your opponent's turn, because this list is very good at charging your opponent's turn. Normally, charging your opponent's turn doesn't work very well unless you have a very favorable matchup, like you're going to charge into some chaff, or you're like a big monster thing that's survivable.
Yeah.
which none of those things, like KO doesn't have that. So, but charging into your opponent in your opponent's turn and fighting first
It's so great.
is brilliant.
It's so, and people maybe not see it coming, and you'll explain it to them, but they don't quite. It doesn't quite compute. And you're like, oh, cool. Countercharge. By the way, your unit's dead that you just charged. So that was fun. Hey guys, listen. I really hate to retreat here, and I'm not going to be shooting. Don't worry. But I definitely got to retreat here. I'm going to fly high and go pick up my wife and kid. But thank you for letting me hop on, and I'll see everybody later. Maybe I'll go find out where Max is.
Yeah, quick flight to Germany.
All right, yeah, absolutely. Take it easy, guys.
See ya. Thanks, Matt. All right. Cool.
All right.
So let's talk about some of the problems with this list, or a double frigate list in general.
Yeah.
And I think it's CP because it wants to do all the things. Like you want to redeploy, you want to shoot in your opponent's turn, you want to countercharge potentially, you want to power through. You just don't have that many CP, and then you got enemy riggers, which when they fight, they're hitting on 4s. Like, so you kind of also want an all-out attack potentially. Like, there's a lot of stuff you want to spend CP on.
And you just don't have that amount of CP.
No, so you've got to be very careful where you spend it. You're probably not going to be using all-out attack, because of all the things, it's the least game-changing.
And you can't countercharge if they charge you these days.
Well, that's why you have your Arkanauts. But yeah, you've got to set up for it. That is the thing that would allow this list to play in two places. Is if you sort of move one up one flank and one up the other flank with Arkanauts in front of it, you can redeploy the one that doesn't have Arkanauts in front of it, so they get to safety, and you can countercharge with the other one. That's the only way you can really do it, I think. Or you can, or you go and you have them both on the same flank, and you sort of have one closer to the center than the other one, so you know which one they're going to be coming at, and that's the one that gets out of dodge. So yeah, it's cool. Brokk, I think you play him if you want to. You don't need to, but you can certainly do a double frigate list that spends a few more points on heroes.
Brokk is good. I think he is value. He basically has the damage output of a frigate, and the combat output of about 3 riggers.
One thing I would say about a double frigate list compared to an Ironclad list is you get more long range shots, and when you add Brokk in there, that's also, you know, adds on a few more, becomes a bit more significant.
You get more range shots with the boats for sure.
Yeah,
but the people in the boats are usually, 30 Thunderers is a lot of range.
Yeah, but I'm talking about long range, because 18 inches is okay. But depending on what you're playing against, sometimes you can play against stuff with longer range than 18. And that puts KO into a funny place.
23-inch range.
Possibly, yeah.
Because of the combo hero trait and army trait that you're playing. That's what it is. That's why you take this to get that. You can really shoot over. People don't expect your army to be able to hit their heroes, but it does. Then you kill the wizards, and then there's no more wizards.
Yeah. What you don't like is when you have opponents that have a little bit of long range shooting, and it is better than your long range shooting, but also you can't get in close to them because they're better in combat than you, basically, and you need to take them apart over a few turns. But you also can't take them apart over a few turns because their long range shooting is better than yours. That's the position you don't want to be in. So having some longer range stuff or having a way to buff range is helpful.
For sure.
In this list, even though the Enriggers are in the General's Regiment, you'll probably have the Sky Wardens go around with Brokk, and all the riggers go around with the other frigate, because the Sky Wardens benefit more from Brokk. they just percentage-wise is more attacks and more chance of mortal wounds. Whereas, yeah, it just they benefit more. They get like a bigger percentage buff, so it makes sense to do it that way around. Cool. Go on. Anything else to say about this list?
Not really. I think we've covered most of it.
Cool. Let's cycle back then to look at a version without. What can I score?
There we go.
Frigate
Frigate
Balls.
Ball.
That's the best I could come up with a name. So this is
This
a
has
double
direct-
frigate
I like Drekkie.
melee list without Brokk, and basically you just get to spend your points on more balloons. You don't actually get a huge amount more balloons, really, in the long run, because there's 21 here, and this one's got 18, 3 more balloons because some points have been spent on Drekkie. If you went for a slightly cheaper hero, you could maybe get some more, take out the Archons, but he's not, considering he's 290 points, he's not like he's not a massive drop in balloon boys because you still got to have another hero.
No, and Drekkie is relatively cheap as far as KO heroes go.
Yeah, I mean, he's Admiral price. You could downgrade him by 50 points, and you've got 60 points spare. You can save some more. But
Drekkie has the firepower of a frigate in his little pistol.
You're not going to get another unit of balloons in there unless you take out some Arcanauts as well, actually. The Arcanauts... Would you agree the Arcanauts are a little bit of wiggle room in the list for people? They are seasoning more than requirement.
They're a little superfluous, probably.
Yes,
yeah,
you could switch them to balloons if you wanted to, and you could switch these Sky Wardens to riggers, and then you can switch these to riggers. And does the math work on that, or would you have to downgrade Drekkie? 30, and you'd say 20. Yeah, the math works. So yeah, that works. So you could do that. This plays basically the same as the other list, except for you're not getting the extra attacks.
Instead, you get the shots from Drekkie, which is comparable to, I guess, Drekkie and Brokk will basically shoot the same.
Why is Drekkie good in a list like this? And that's because he gives you the reroll to the run roll, which is cool because you can get
charges.
And charges, which is very good with counter charge because counter charge is, first of all, it's 2 CP, which is expensive. Second of all, it's risky because you could spend 2 CP and fail that charge, but getting a reroll on it is very good. And you can't use a command point for a reroll on it because the boat can't do 2 commands. So, yeah, getting a reroll on that is really handy. And he synergizes with the Endrin Master because the Endrin Master can give a boat run and shoot, and Drekkie can give you the reroll on that run roll because unlike the Thunderclad list, or an Ironclad list, you don't have the CP to spare in a frigate list so much to do auto run 60. So, cool.
Yeah, the little runs is really nice, and yeah, he does work really well with the frigate. You got your 3 Sky Wardens, I guess, to do your prospector unit. You're digging for the gold, getting the battle tactic.
Yeah. But also they can help be additional fighting power if you charge in with a frigate, because you can charge in one frigate with 6 riggers and 3 Sky Wardens, and yeah, it's not as good as having 12 balloon boys, but they've all got fight first, so it helps. And they just extra damage. And if you get them into combat, they can then use their time charges to go off without you having to use power through, and they could just go and be 3 bodies on an objective that your opponent thought was safe, because they had created a wall in front of it. Essentially, you charge the wall, and they can just go off and sit on that objective or something. It's quite cool.
Yeah.
Or get you a terrain piece that you picked, and they thought was out of reach or something. That's cool. Would you agree that double frigate melee lists are harder to play than the Thunderclad list or the Ironclad
Probably,
list?
yeah, for sure. Because you need to be, you're basically having to be aware of the positions and potential threats to 2 boats rather than just one. Which gives you more board presence, but it's also, you're, I don't know, much more vulnerable.
You also have to take some risks if you want to make the most out of the list, don't you? Because if you want to set up a trap for a counter charge, you've got to be in charge range, and your plan is not to get out dodge; it's to fight. So it's riskier. You need to know your opponent's army a lot more. I think.
Yeah.
There's a lot more that could go wrong because you could charge something, and it could, you don't kill it. You think you're going to kill it, and you don't, and it could, that could very quickly go bad.
It can.
Cool. So let's look at our last list archetype, which is a double frigate list, but it's a bit different. It is a frigate with guns. So,
see, what if we put Thunderers in frigates?
Yes, essentially. And how can we make that work if you want to play a bit more of a mixed arm thing, but you don't want just an Ironclad? So basically, you take 2 frigates still. Double frigates works. Don't think really things are cheap enough to make 3 frigates work.
But your riggers can't be in the frigates in this list.
No. So this list has to play differently to the normal double frigate list. And it actually will play more like a Thunderclad list, where instead of just moving an Ironclad somewhere and getting 30 Thunderers out, you'll move 2 frigates up, get 20 Thunderers out, and you move your end riggers up behind, and you need to try and position in a way so that one frigate can redeploy towards the other one, and then you want to try and countercharge with the other one, and then that will take the 2 units of end riggers with it. That's what you'd try and do with this list, or just set up for those end riggers to charge next turn.
Yeah. So on the counter charge, you transport the riggers. On the normal move, transport the Thunderers.
Yeah. Or just next turn, the riggers just move 12 and charge, while you go off and shoot something else. So you're taking the Engine Master the same way as you take them in the other list. There's a Navigator in there. There isn't really points for Dreki in this because the Thunder is a bit more pricey.
Thunder's a bit expensive.
And a Navigator is a good choice. I don't think it's worth a chemist. You don't really need 2 Engine Masters, I don't think.
No, I wouldn't.
No.
Although, are there effects once per game?
What do you mean once per game per army, or is that what you're saying?
So yeah, once per turn. Sorry, are there effects once per Engine Masters once per turn? Could 2 Engine Masters heal that much or give that much?
So the run and shoot is once per turn per army. So you couldn't give 2 ships run and shoot. So
okay, so yeah, probably not worth taking 2.
Yeah, it's not worth having 2. Yeah, it's cool. If I was to play double frigates, I would probably play something more like this. Bit more mixed arm, but you've got the shooting power from 20 Thunderers. It's good. If
that
you compare this,
your walls as well, much easier. Your screens.
Yeah. Yeah, your Thunderers are acting as they can kill stuff. It also gives you something to put an honor guard on, because you could, I mean, you obviously can put it on a unit of riggers, or you could put it on a frigate or something, but a unit of hunters I think is a much better choice for an honor guard, and give them +1 to hit and wound. I mean, you can give +1 to hit and wound to a unit of enemy riggers, and actually that will help buff their shooting to 2s and 3s, which is good, and also buff them in combat. That is good, to be fair. Yeah, fair. That's not bad. And of course, you've got the option for the +1 rend at against some opponents. If you compare this to like the mixed arms list with an Ironclad, the benefit here is that you can fight with multiple units of riggers and get fight first, which obviously you can't do. You know what I was talking about earlier with trying to take the flanks and give away the turn 1, so they take the flanks and then you want to go and take the flanks. In theory, you can do it with a double frigate list. So that's cool.
I feel like this could also be a Thunderer, just for the additional range, kind of sub-faction, to get the at least 13 and 21-inch range.
Yeah.
Only get as close as you absolutely have to.
Yeah, Aether Runners is an awkward one for this one, because you don't want the ships moving much further than the engine riggers, because they are just walking up behind. They're not benefiting from the ship's transport. So you don't want them going much, like a massive amount faster. But yeah, so plus extra range on the shooting could be a good option as well. Cool. But yeah, I think this style of list with mixed arms and double frigates has some legs, and is competitive, I would say. Your mileage will vary. Obviously, it's not as competitive as Nighthorn, but not much is at the moment. It's you can take it to a 2-day and do fairly well, I think, and be playing. I mean, it depends on your skill level as much as anything, doesn't it? It's cool. It's good. Let's talk about what we think doesn't work for KO or list building right now.
In general?
Yeah, well, in terms of list structures, because you can do a single Ironclad and fill it with a bunch of stuff. You can take 2 frigates and they transport around a bunch of stuff, whether it's shooting or melee, and as we've seen, vary the amount you spend on heroes. What about 3 frigates? Do you think 3 frigates works?
Probably not. They don't. Still, the frigates have the firepower in and of themselves to be to work as that gunboat. And unfortunately, I think
this list, there's not enough points there to justify having like a 3rd frigate and then having enough balloon boys. You're going to be having frigates and then nothing for them to transport.
Also, yeah, frigates are 320 points right now, and it's you just don't have the space to put 3 frigates and enough units to put into the frigates. I mean, you could maybe put like 10 Arcanauts in each, but okay, then where's the damage coming from?
And if you played 3 frigates and 30 Thunderers, which I believe should fit, because you're 320 plus 280 times by 3, that's 1,800 points. You could only really fit 1 hero. That's the problem. But it's
then
just,
you won't have enough for regiments.
No, and it's just more expensive than you're transporting the same amount of Thunderers as the Ironclad, the Thunderclad list, but you're spending more points. More points on transport.
You can only ever redeploy 1 of those units, not all 3 of them.
Yeah, so it just doesn't work. You might as well just play a Thunderclad and it's better. Okay, let's talk about gun haulers. They just don't
Um,
transport enough, do they?
No, and I think they're a bit too expensive right now to be able to do the all gun hauler list that we used to do back in third.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like, if you wanted to play one frigate and a gun hauler, which is what I played last edition, it just doesn't transport enough to make it worthwhile. 5 Thunderers, they're inconsequential. It's not enough. Or 3 balloon boys. There's no point transporting 3 balloon boys anyway. You could transport a hero, and maybe that would be helpful in some lists, but
yeah, I think they really wanted people to transport 5 Thunderers in the gun hauler, which is also, I guess, why we have that Army of Renown with all gun haulers and Thunderers, which has some nice like stratagems and as in army traits and artifacts and such that you can use, but it's just not good enough to have like 5 gun haulers transporting 25 Thunderers. Is just I really think you want to consolidate your power in KO into as small of a basket as you can. So that whether that be 1 Ironclad, which is my preference, or 2 frigates here, and more boats is just diluting your power too much. I think.
How would you feel about a list that has an Ironclad and a frigate?
Might have potential, yeah. I've played around with that before. The Ironclad kind of being that solid center, and the frigate. So the Ironclad kind of plays back a lot, and you're not getting within 12. You're not using the carbines. You're using the 24-inch range. You're using long range Thunderers, and then you basically play the game with the frigate with its redeploy and its counter charge, doing
It's
as much
going to play
damage
the
as
same
you
way as
can.
this list, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, kind of, so that the frigate will eventually get caught out and die, and then you can start falling back on the Ironclad, and then suddenly start playing using a lot of your command points on that Ironclad. Basically, you're playing. You basically have 2 stages of your army. First, the frigate, then when that dies, the Ironclad, and you can kind of. It's a bit of a backup, I guess. But again, it was. So you're not playing with 30 Thunderers at that point. You're playing with, I think it's 10 Thunderers and 20 Arcanauts, and then the frigate's transporting 6 riggers, and I think you get Brokk in there maybe, or it's Drecky, one of those 2.
Do you have an admiral or not, or Endmaster?
I think an Endmaster is more important than an admiral, honestly, because it gives you that redeploy. It gives you the retreat and shoot. Sorry, and retreat and shoot is more useful than free all-out attack, I think.
Yeah, you would be able to fit Brokk in, which is interesting. But that's only with 6 balloon boys.
Yeah, I mean that's all you're going to fit in 1 frigate anyway. 6 balloons, Brokk in the frigate, and then 10 and 20 in the Ironclad.
So yeah, maybe there is some play for a list with an Ironclad and a frigate. Maybe.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there are choices with KO. You can play the army in a few different ways.
Cool.
We're not just stuck to one type and one aspect,
build.
like template of list, and then within that template there are many ways to run these types. So like there's lots of ways to run the Thunderclad. I think what we showed off one way, but there's a few other ways in the works.
Yeah, I think most of these lists you can probably change your formation. You can be like, some are going to be better than others, but I think the whether you're Aether Runners or Engineers Expeditionary Force or the Grundstok one, I think they've all got some play in them, and the list doesn't dictate it too much. And then same with the artifacts as well. They're a bit meta dependent, and the heroes as well. Like you got some options. We've kind of said that we prefer the Endrin Master. So the Navigator has some play. Some Dreki has some uses and stuff. Even with a Thunderclad, you could put in a Chemist if you wanted to, if you really like him. It's cool. They're kind of how you season the army, aren't they? You take a structure of, okay, I want to take a Thunderclad list, and then you can play around the heroes and the other stuff a bit.
Roughly 500 points after the Thunderclad to spend on whatever bonuses, however you want to play your game.
Yeah, you can mix and match the heroes and stuff, and your mileage will vary from game to game because matchups and stuff, and it's cool. What the better decisions will come down to who you play against, really, in many ways. So there's a question from the chat about Regiments of Renown. So Paul Saleh asks, how do we feel about adding Regiments of Renown like Callus and Toll, Black Talons, or Gotrek? I think that will potentially be another show.
It will. We've got a few things to say about Regiments of Renown. I think some of them are quite strong. Callus and Toll on an objective, amazing. And put out a decent amount of damage, especially against Wizards and Manifestations, which is an issue in this early part of 4th edition, especially for us who don't get Manifestations. Take Black Talon, get your own Manifestations. That's our spell in the bottle.
Yeah.
And then there's other, there's Giants, there's Fire Slayers, there's the Sylvaneth bow shooters. There's a lot of options still.
We tried to keep this show mostly focused on pure KO, but what we didn't say when we talked about the Thunderclad is Kron is running that with the Fire Slayers at the moment.
Lee tried very hard to make me stay on track and not go off on a tangent about
Fire Slayers,
about the regiments. Yeah, there's some spicy things you can do with that Thunderclad list. Oh my god, Fire Slayers are such a pick. Anyway, that's for another show.
I guess. I mean, he asked about Gotrek. I love Gotrek.
Lee likes Gotrek.
I don't know if I like him in this edition.
I also had Gotrek. I liked Gotrek, but he's not that anymore.
Yeah,
he's just he's not there.
I feel like I want to try him at some point, and there might be a way of playing him, but at the moment, I don't know. He's not as survivable as he used to be, and that was his main selling point for KO.
Yeah.
So yeah, and he's still slow. He can now charge in your opponent's turn, which is very good. I think maybe he could play in a Thunderclad list because you've got that CP to spend if you want to have him fight twice, because it's not using all the CP. But maybe if you took him, a different Regiment of Renown would actually be a better choice. Possibly. I mean, and then, yeah, if you take one that lets you take endless spells, that's a whole kettle of fish then, because then, well, I mean, it is sort of a kettle of fish, but really it comes down to two choices. You either take the one with the purple sun and all that jazz, or you take Kronspine.
Yeah.
That's what most people are doing at the moment. And there's a reason why the top tables all have purple suns and that jazz on them. That's a really good one, basically.
The other manifestation laws are good. It's just that Morbid is just that one step above. Like all the manifestation laws are basically like 9 out of 10s, but the Morbid is like 9.5 out of 10.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I think there's something you could do maybe with KO if you could have endless spells where you take ones that mess with movement and then you also have a navigator. Maybe there's something there. There's also something to say with how many wizards and how many casts you have and how reliable they are to what you pick.
Yeah.
I've seen some people saying I'm going for Cronspine because I've only really got one cast.
But you
But
need
then
a pretty good cast. You do need +1, possibly even +2 to cast more, but to cast that in any consistency.
Like my opponent last weekend that had the squigs, he had a Cronspine. He didn't cast it all game.
Yeah.
I mean, he didn't try it every turn. And then there were 2 rounds where his wizards were dead. So, but it's a hard cast, and if you haven't got bonuses to cast, it's difficult to get off. So there is a thing to say where it's like, well, if you take all these endless spells, can you actually cast them all as well if you've only got one wizard? So there's a lot to unpack there, which is why it's almost another show. But Paul also says that 230 points for Callison Toll is 22 HP, and cheaper than Brokk. I mean, he's not wrong.
And and that 4-up ward save on an objective is nuts.
Mm-hmm.
They will just not move.
Yeah. Another thing that's interesting is the I can't remember the name of it, but the dispossess one.
Oh yeah.
They all get a 5-up ward, and there's a lot of wounds there. Can't remember how many, but more than Kazador. Obviously, it's not a 4-up ward, but 5-up ward. It's good.
Yeah.
And KO have a bit of a problem at the moment where we want to score late. We are, and it's actually also battle tactics can be quite difficult for us at the moment. It's not like it was before. Where you just had loads of easy ones.
Yeah, that age is gone.
It's very easy to get behind on the first 3 rounds or first 2 rounds, and then you got to catch up. If you have something that can just go sit on a point and hold it, that will help with that, because you're not just ceding ground to your opponents, letting them score extra points. So yeah, I think there is some play for KO with Regiments of Renown is the short answer.
Yeah, so
we'll do a show on it.
We'll make a show about that.
Yeah. Cool. Anything else you want to say, Kron?
No, I think as Matt was saying, our points are definitely too high, but if you bring the points down a little, it could open up a lot more things. It could make the army a lot more viable. We could start using maybe 3 frigates all filled with proper units like Endling Riggers. Start using some more hero combinations. But for now, our list basically have to have 0 fat. Everything needs to be there for a purpose, contributing to that main plan, essentially.
Yeah, we're not even really affording deck chair units at the moment. It's everything needs to contribute to killing stuff.
There is no space for your favorite unit, unfortunately, for the pet unit that you always want to bring along. It's like that unit that's it's not always good, but sometimes it's amazing and it's really good situationally. Here you need everything needs to be contributing to your core plan because you don't have points to spend outside of your core idea.
Do you agree that the core plan is kill your opponents quick enough that you can then hold objectives?
Yeah, because I think KO take objectives, but they can't hold objectives.
Yeah, so you want to kill as much as your opponent's army as quickly as possible. That's what you're trying to do.
Yeah,
catch up on points, I think, and your mileage varies depending on how many wounds and how hard they are to kill.
Yeah,
how much stuff they can bring back.
for sure.
Cool. Well, that's the end of the show. It's quite a short one for once. It's good.
1.5 hours, not so bad.
1.5 hours, not too bad. Talked about 5 core lists. Good. Thanks everyone for watching. Thank you, Quan, for being here and talking with lists and stuff.
Always.
Thanks to Matt as well. And yeah, if you like the show, hit like, hit subscribe for more KO content in the future. And we will try and make sure that the next show is not such a big gap as it was between this one and the last one.
There is a lot to talk about. New edition.
Yes. There is. It's just time. Time is hard to find. Cool. And thanks for everyone that got involved in the live chat as well. We like it when people get involved. So cool.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching, everyone. Goodbye.
See ya.